Hey, it's me, your Uncle Cooper. Sorry to interrupt your music. I do love music, especially when it's set at a reasonable volume. You know, music is really only as good as your speakers. The same is true for minivans. A minivan is only as good as the tires it sits on. And the button on the screen there, it agrees with me. If you click on it, it'll bring you to all the Cooper minivan tires that'll make your minivan a really good minivan. Go with the Coopers! Cooper!
Right now, Amazon is offering some amazing extra perks that come with a job offer. If you start a warehouse job, you can get a $1,000 sign-on bonus. That means you start earning a paycheck right away, plus you get extra cash to use before the holidays. Applying is so easy, you don't even need an interview. It's never been so rewarding to start an hourly job that's close to home. So what are you waiting for? To join the team today, visit amazon.com/sign-on bonus. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Hey folks, this episode is from my other podcast, Without Compromise, that is hosted through Athletic Brewing. You can check that out, but I thought, since Dani is a climber and a snowboarder and an outdoor advocate, I just thought the conversation would be such a great fit for ASP that I decided to basically use the interview for our show as well. So this is where that episode's coming from. Dani is awesome to talk to. I've been meaning to get her on the pod for a while now, so it was awesome to be able to kind of use the conversation for both podcasts. So if you'd like to check out my other show, Without Compromise, we talk to slightly different folks. If you're a fan of the NFL, by the way, I had just had J.J. Watt, former Defensive Player of the Year like 3 different times. You might know his name if you're a fan of football. So I also talked to a lot of more traditional athletes over there and people in the brewing industry where I work and stuff like that. So if you want to check that out, go for it. But anyway, Dani's story is awesome. We're talking about just, taking the road less traveled. That is a common theme with our show, is going the path that other people say you either shouldn't go down or no one around you has gone down. Maybe it's not anyone thinks it's wrong. It's just no one's ever done it. And Dani's story is that it's doing things slightly differently that have really cool, unexpected outcomes. It's the style of life I like as well. So I hope you enjoy. All right, folks, you heard a little bit about Dani's story in the intro, but we're going to talk to Dani right now and hear exactly what's going on in her life and how she got to this point and her mindset around adventure and career and all this stuff and living without compromise. Dani, welcome to the show.
Ooh, well, that was an intro. I don't know how to follow that up, but
was it? I didn't mention anything specific.
Well, I don't know. I'm imagining the things that you said were nice. I don't know. How about this? Hi. Thank you for having me.
There you go.
No, it really is an honor to join you in this conversation today because it's been a journey to kind of understand what it means to live without compromise. And I'm super stoked to just lean into that conversation today with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, tell me this. This is what I always ask first. And I know you've been all over the place, like lived in a van and traveled coast to coast. And you're from California, but you're in the mountains now. There are plenty of mountains in California, but you were in coastal California. Where are you now? Where is home for you now?
Yep. So I'm based in Southwest Colorado. I am frequently on the road again now that the effects of the pandemic have been mitigated, but certainly during the pandemic, which is when we really truly set down roots here on a little homestead. So I'm in Southwest Colorado where the leaves are popping.
What do you like about, because I know you were in a van and living kind of that remote lifestyle for a long time. Tell us about some of the changes between being rooted and not rooted, and what you've maybe liked about that?
First and foremost, it's really exciting to literally root, in the sense of we grow a lot of our own food now, seasonally, and still get to do some local adventures, right? So the pandemic really, I think, showed me in more ways than one that investing in what I have nearby or in my own backyard, wherever that backyard may be, is what can help me not just appreciate that local community and local recreational assets, but also help me understand how to better show up for those spaces, whether they're public lands or not. And so growing our food, getting a really much more intimate knowledge of the place in my own backyard, or as it were, I call it my backyard, back country. And I think a lot, maybe we can go into this a little bit later, but living in a van, unlike having a more rooted existence, was very much driven by two things. Not just a pursuit for adventure, but the desire to reach a more like a healthy mental space of being able to incorporate recreation into my life, but also have a career. And when you're living in a van, it's almost like, well, you can only work in your van so much before you have to go outside, or else you're going to be nuts. But on the other hand, there is definitely a housing crisis, and living in a van enabled me to do so many things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was trying to live in mountain towns all across the West. But it also kind of made you constantly be having to move, because you can't live on public lands or in your friend's driveway or what have you so often. And so there's this sense of like kind of constant movement, which was really great for a while, but honestly, I just kind of got very tired of it. and rooting enables me to literally ground.
It's the time of life. I think that there's a time where endless travel with work was like a dream come true. And now I've got 2 kids in a house, and it's like, oh my God, I got to travel. You tell me I got to leave. Like, you want to be rooted. It's weird. I'm like, there will never be a day that comes that I don't look forward to constant movement. Right now, it's like, dang, I actually do want to be home. How weird is that? I never thought I'd say that.
Well, with the turning of the seasons, right? Like right now is a beautiful time to be home and sort of enjoying the fruits of your labor and kind of getting ready for the rest of the fall, but also a winter, which is, as a species, a time traditionally that we hibernate. The flip side of that is, when you think about the way that work and travel and of course adventure have played a role in my life, I think there's almost this kind of parallel that I see in work that happens in my adventure life of just like go, constant, like not having rest days, not building in time for myself to just disconnect, to reconnect, kind of all of those things. That's like the Atlantic called it, the religion of productivity, right? It's almost like if I'm not achieving XYZ ski line, or if not, I'm not running 24 miles, if I'm not at a meeting getting some stuff done, right? Like measuring success for myself by being busy every single day is not something that makes me feel like a healthy human. And so I think being rooted in some ways is a way to build in time to like, and this is so silly, like the mundanity of cleaning my house or cooking a meal for friends, like just the slower things in life. And something because we're always restless, right? Like the grass is always greener. Like sometimes I'm at my house, I'm like, there's so many things to do. I just want to go and travel. And my friend and mentor, Conrad Anker, had talked to me at one point because I was kind of struggling with this thing of like, how do I balance life and adventure and work? And he'd said to me, I think about my year in 2-week blocks throughout the year. And I sort of started fixating on this. And I realized, well, everything kind of is in 2-week blocks, right? I'll be home for 2 weeks and it's work, 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 have some dinners, go train, right? Whatever my schedule looks like. I'm still getting out. I'm still doing all the work. And then I know that 2-week period will be done. And then I'll probably go on another 2-week period. Maybe that's 2 weeks of travel. Maybe it's 2 weeks of a different project, what have you. And so to me, just compartmentalizing, even being rooted or even just traveling has been a way to give some structure for how I approach every single day.
One, that's a hell of a name drop with your mentor, my friend and mentor, Conrad Anchor. I'm like, my friend and mentor is like my friend Paul that no one knows.
I bet Paul's pretty cool though.
He is cool. He's
Paul, we love you.
Guy. Yeah, very cool dude. That's really cool. The 2-week interval thing. You know, it's funny. I don't want to like be the person that's constantly talking about their kids, but it's the same philosophy with kids. Like nothing lasts for more than 2 weeks. So if they're not sleeping or sickness or anything, any phase is usually like a 2-week thing before it's you get out of that or adjusted. And it's funny because I've never thought about applying that also to other parts of life. But yeah, when I start to think about it, I'm like, yeah, everything is kind of like a 2-week increment.
Think about it like this. We do interval training in so many of our different pursuits, right? Cycling, running, whatever, however it is that you do your interval training. And interval training makes us stronger. It gives us more endurance, right? It helps us show up in the way that we want to show up. So why wouldn't we think about the rest of our lives as interval training?
I like it.
Thanks, Conrad.
Yeah, thanks, Conrad. I know your story has taken you so many places and done so many different things, but where do you think this came from? What were you? Did you grow up with a family or the lifestyle that led you to do lots of different things and pursue things? I don't know, just out of sheer curiosity, or was it a structured lifestyle, structured childhood? What would you say your experience was?
Oh, no one's ever asked me this question before. So I think I grew up with a pretty, what I thought was normal lifestyle at the time, or it felt pretty normal to me. My parents worked from home. They worked for themselves. They traveled quite a bit when I was young, mostly internationally. And they encouraged me to read a lot, probably because I still had the same energy then that I did now, but in a much smaller, more dynamic form, with a much higher pitched voice. And so you have to give your kids books to read, otherwise they won't shut up. So I was encouraged to read. I was a really curious kid. I loved, I was like a little science kid. I remember learning what aloe was, and that we had aloe all over our yard because I grew up in Southern California, and I was making all of these like potions and salves and didn't even know what I was doing. But my mom was like, "Where did you get this?" And I was like, "I made it." And she was like, "This is actually really cool and great." Anyway, so maybe I was like a little witchy kid as a child. My parents just really encouraged curiosity and learning, and my childhood was fairly structured. I played 1 to 3 hours of classical piano every single day. My father and grandmother were both classical pianists. And my mother's family, who comes from a very different socioeconomic class, it definitely had the immigrant mindset of work very hard and go to med school or become a lawyer. So there was a lot of expectation piled onto my young, bouncy shoulders as I was jumping around with aloe plants in the yard. And during my adolescence, a lot of our life changed. My father got sick, my mother got sick, and we left the beach area of Los Angeles and moved to Fresno, where I learned a lot about who I was and what I looked like and the way the world wanted to treat me. But I had already gotten into long distance running. I started cross country in high school. And this is when I learned that my church upbringing, we grew up Catholic, very much was like tied to like embracing the suffering of long hot runs in 100-degree heat as a high schooler, which I definitely attribute to like why I'm embracing endurance mountain sports as an adult, right? So thank you, parents, for and life for serving up adversity, because it made me who I am. But fundamentally, I think it just comes back to the fact that as a kid, I was encouraged to learn and ask questions, and I always did. And so I think that same thread just shows up in my life now, because in so many ways I have, I've lived through, I guess, 2 recessions as a professional, and as well as a pandemic. And there's a lot to be said for, I think there's one time in the last 5 years where I was like, maybe I should just go. Well, not one time. There were actually many times, but one specific moment where I remember saying to my partner, hey, I'm going to really do this freelance thing. I'm going to work for myself. The athlete piece came a little bit later, but I fundamentally said, like, if this doesn't work in a year, I'm going back to corporate America. I will go get a job and someone else can pay the bills. But, a lot of what I was doing was really just about testing and trying and asking questions, and testing and trying and asking questions. And at the same time, I think trying to be kind and build good relationships. And so 2 things, curiosity and relationships, are what put me here now. And those are certainly values that I learned in childhood.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. As your name implies, Instagram handle, Not Lost, Just Discovering, can you talk about, has that been like a position you've had to defend? Or, I don't know, a family, I know with me, it was like, after college, I had no clear plan. I just went bikepacking for like a year. And then they were like, well, you got to get a job or you got something to do. And I did feel like, I don't know, I'm just going to go see. And thankfully it's led to some really cool stuff. I knew it would, but it's almost, you had to convince others that it would. Tell us about that name, Not Lost, Just Discovering, and some of the places it may have taken you.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I initially thought when you were going to ask if I had to defend it, if it had to do with the sort of myth of American exceptionalism and what discovering means in the modern outdoors. And no, I haven't had to defend that because a big part of discovering to me is about the inner journey, right? So when I say Not Lost, Just Discovering, this is about the inner journey and personal process of personal discovery that we go through when we're outdoors or undertaking an adventure. And in so many ways, and hopefully this speaks to what we were just discussing, the adventure, when we go on an adventure, we're not just doing something that's cool, right, and Instagram worthy. I mean, sure, it might be both of those things, but it's also an experience that helps us do one of 3 things. It helps us heal, right? Maybe we've had a bad day at work, maybe we've had a trauma or something in between, but going outside helps us heal, or going outside can help us connect. It can help us connect to the people around us, to the environment, to ourselves, or it can help us grow, right? Like, this is about like going 10, 20% beyond what you thought you could do. And I guess getting rad. And so when I talk about discovery, it's in no way meant to refer to a spatial or temporal experience. It's more so the inner process of what that means. And I think when you ask if I've had to defend that to family, 2 things. First, my process of personal discovery did not begin until I left corporate America in 2012. There are a variety of factors why, but one of those, well, I'll just say it. I left a very toxic relationship. I left a work role that wasn't for me. I love that company. It just wasn't the right job for me. And I was ready to change my housing situation. And so my family knew about all of these things. And so when I bought a one-way ticket to South America and said, I'm going to go rock climbing and snowboarding and surfing and backpacking, and I'll be back in a little bit, they were like, we don't like this, but it seems like this would be a good decision. Please don't die. They started pressuring me, months and months later when I still was meeting people and going and doing all these things. And, I remember my youngest sister, who now lives in the Bay Area, sending me a lot of job listings, like job descriptions for, working at another corporate company. I could make 100 plus a year. And I was like, no.
Well, yeah. So was that welcome? Or was that like, hey, please stop doing this?
I was like, well, hey, please stop doing this. I mean, on that same token, like when I got back from South America, I fully thought that I was going to go back to Portland and go work at Nike or Adidas, which would have been the competition because I was at Nike. But I had this expectation like, oh, I'll go get a contract job and go get this job again and go up there again, because I really didn't know what I was going to do. It felt a little bit like taking two steps back or like one step diagonal. I wasn't really sure. But yeah, so when I got back from South America, this is 2014, after months of amazing alpine and desert experiences in Chile, Argentina, Peru, I reconnected with this wonderful human I met, who is still my human today. And he and I went climbing in Yosemite. We went surfing in Santa Cruz. And after a month or two and making Thanksgiving dinner with my family, he was like, I love you. And I was like, I love you too. And he was like, you should come to Colorado. And I was like, okay.
That's how it happened.
And that's how I came to Colorado. And so I threw my I would say non-planned plans of going back to the Pacific Northwest out the window and jumped in his Pathfinder and drove out to Crested Butte with him. And that was 2016. And I would say the rest is history, but it's not, because it's still an adventure we're discovering every single day.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
wow, that's so wild. And when you take a journey, a path less traveled, or something there's no guidebook for, you start meeting other people on the same journey as well. And you realize, wow, I admire them. They're farther down this journey, and I respect them, and they're, you know what I mean? You start to get examples and mentors like a Conrad Anker, great example of someone that's farther down that road that's like, well, they did it, I can do it too. And you start to get this community of folks that have done things totally different. I mean, gosh, here at Athletic, Bill, if he wouldn't have walked away from corporate America, we wouldn't be talking right now, probably, because it led to what Athletic Brewing is. That was going totally against the grain. And it's the same exact spirit between what Bill has done, and I feel like my lifestyle, and what you're doing and the people around you are doing, of we're not lost. We're discovering something really cool, really new and incredible, and you should join. You should join me on this journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, there are two words that really sum it up. And anyone, I think, around the world can resonate with this. Ready? Punk rock. I'm not going to say, there's something about, like you said, being counterculture, being willing to go against the grain, being willing to see things for what they are, and sometimes name it, or sometimes just know deep in your gut that this isn't the right thing for you. Maybe it is for a lot of other people, but for you, it's not. And it's been a long, long, long time to say I actually know what I'm doing. And well, I technically still, I don't know a lot of things. There are a few things I do know, but there are many things I don't know. And by admitting, I think that I don't know a lot of things, it gives me the permission to keep discovering things that are going to help me be a better person, or a better professional, a better partner, a better athlete.
Yeah. You're right. Creating a very close relationship with being uncomfortable is part of doing things differently. What else do you think you've learned about taking the path less traveled and doing things differently, and maybe not having that layout in front of you for years and years and years to come? What else kind of keeps you motivated and positive on this unknown journey?
Whew. That's a big question. Okay, let's see if I can break it down a little bit. If I look at how, during the pandemic, I, like many people, I think had went through a few pretty rough patches, whether that was with my work or with my ability to physically do things. I mean, I broke my back, so I really had a hard time doing some things. quite a few things, actually.
Did you step on a crack? Oh, okay.
I wish. It was a snowmobile accident. I'm sorry, that was hilarious. No. So I certainly had a few rough patches, but I think as we transition into a time where I think the world has opened a little bit more, that's also given me the permission or ability, I think, to think about, well, if this was what the world looks like when it's like wildfires are burning and Black and brown people are dying in disproportionate numbers and access to public lands is limited or restricted, all of these things that I think we as a society hadn't discussed. I came to this place where I realized, well, a lot of these things don't just affect me, but they're also affecting people I care about. And it's about dang time I do something. And so that's been, I think, a big motivator for a lot of the work that I've dedicated my time to in the last, I guess, two odd years here, thinking about how can I do something? What are the ways that I can affect change, whether it's in my little community, whether it's in my exo community, which is, I call that my like friend network online or what have you, right? The people that don't physically live in my space. How do I affect the outdoor industry? How does this like show up in my athletic pursuits and in the media and stories that I tell? Because I came out from this monster mission in the Sierra last week. It was so adorable. There were these there were 4 young men, 18 to 22. They're going on their first backpacking trip. And they saw me bouncing down the trail. I've got this 50-pound pack. I went fast packing / running into this zone, like 24 miles in. And then I was mountain running and climbing this like series of peaks. Anyway, and so I come down this trail at 9 p.m. I've got my headlamp on. They think I'm a ranger. And they asked me the question, are you a professional? I think I was so tired. I just said, yes. Can I help you? And so they're talking to me about my job and all the different things I do in the world, because they're 18 and 22 and they have a lot of questions and I'm physically like exhausted. So why wouldn't I answer all their questions? I don't know if this happens to you as a parent. Like, sure, you get all the answers. Why not? And they were talking to me about media and story as an outdoor athlete. And I said, well, here's the deal. Anybody can get rad, but not anybody can tell a story. And there is something when we think about like, what is it that makes us as a species, like our community, our societies, like really move? And it's story. And I love story. If I can use my voice in a way that makes the world maybe just a little bit of a better place, then maybe that would be rad.
Speaking of using your voice to make the world better and to make these spaces more inclusive, I've seen that you've been to D.C., Washington, D.C., that is, a couple of times now, a handful of times. What is the work you're doing there? What's the context around? I see those posts, you're dressed up. It looks like some really important stuff you're involved in. What is that, and what are you doing?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I never get to talk about my my dressed up days. Just joking. That's not true. Cut that part out. Well, I'm still sort of pinching myself at the reality that is my life now, that I get to go lobby on behalf of what we're calling the outdoor state, which has been a phrase coined by Protect Our Winners to describe the 50 to 100 million people in the United States that love the outdoors. And so my work with Protect Our Winners as an athlete on their Climb Alliance in lobbying for the outdoor state. So what that means is speaking to our elected officials, as well as a few bureaucrats and elected official staff who are the real movers and shakers. Just give a handout for all our congressional staff out there, is it's talking about climate change and climate solutions. Well, let me step back. I'm not talking about climate change because we already know what's happening. I'm talking about climate solutions. So I get to advocate for things like workforce training in rural America, which is really important to transitioning to a just economy. I get to talk about electrification. I get to talk about public lands access and infrastructure. I actually got to advocate in a meeting with the head of the National Park Service and the Council on Environmental Equality. I got to say point blank how important it is that we have Spanish bilingual content, just period, because Latinos are the fastest growing demographic in the United States across the board. And we love the outdoors. As a Spanish speaking Latina, I'd love to see culturally acute content that speaks to me, literally. And anyway, so I just got interviewed by the New York Times, which was kind of wild. So I'll send you that link if you like it. But I think this is the work with Protect Our Winners is definitely in line with, I think, some like what the Two for the Trails program is, right? Which is, or a component of the Two for the Trails program, because this is about making sure that everyone can get on trails, that trails exist, that communities have the infrastructure and support they need so that we can all keep getting outside.
Wow. I know the kind of the theme of this is talking about this road less traveled, going a path that you don't know the outcome just yet, but opportunities are presenting themselves. And I'm sure it is, maybe the word is validation that you've picked the right path, or you're at least you're in that thread of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm talking in front of Congress. I'm talking to the New York Times. I chose the right way to go.
It certainly is. It is validating. It's also, I think, a little, I feel like intimidated, but at the same time, so I have to remind myself, like, I've done the work to be here. Like, I know what
imposter
I don't want to
syndrome.
feel like, yeah, there's just imposter syndrome. But certainly something like this is validating. And I think, as I growing up and seeing, even if it was just early parts of my childhood where I got to see my parents go do things like this as well, it feels like I'm making them proud, and it's pretty exciting, because who doesn't want to make their parents proud?
Wow, that is cool. Another thing validating, I don't know, maybe just a step in your journey, or something that's like, see, people, this is the right way to go. You've got some storytelling projects coming out, and particularly one, a film coming out soon, Outlier. Can we talk about that? Can you tell us about what is that? What is it about, and how you got involved?
Oh, yes. Well, thank you for bringing that up. So Outlier, excuse me. So when I was speaking earlier about this idea of like coming out of the pandemic and showing up for self and community and better future and so on, what that was right around the time where I started realizing that no matter what I did or where I lived, whether that was a rural community, down valley from a mountain community, or in a mountain community, first of all, I was always going to be different, because I am a dark-skinned brown woman with both Mexican and Asian heritage, and like, people will be nice to my face and sometimes they won't, but oftentimes, how shall we say, there's a varying level of education around systemic oppression and microaggressions that I will be experiencing as I move through life. And so, stepping back, the Outlier project was born from this realization that no matter what I did, all I could ever do is be myself, and that I had to trust the process, that I had to trust in the community that I was building, and that, or whether that's physical community or, the natural environment and how I'm showing up for that space. And so this concept of mountain metaphor, backcountry, snowboarding, and skiing was born as a film project. So it's a 3-part series. The first episode, just accepted to Banff, will be.
You said, repeat that, accepted to Banff. Are you allowed to say that?
Yes, you're like, I'm just trying to sneak these things in here.
Banff Film Festival?
Yeah, what's up?
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I'm really excited about it. I've got to figure out a plane ticket, but we've got accepted to Banff Film Festival. We'll also be showing screening through our Heritage, Our Planet Film Festival, which is an online festival or community screening for it's for Latinx community and allies and accomplices. So that's exciting, and I'm going through submitting the film to a slew of other festivals. So stay tuned because it might be online or near you soon. But yeah, that project is really just about trusting the process and trusting who we are. And I can't say too much more because I don't want to give away any spoiler alerts, but our crew is really wonderful. We certainly met some challenging conditions out here in Southeast Utah, but I think we made a pretty cool little thing that you'll appreciate.
I'm excited to check it out. This is awesome. Now, I know this is going to be like your focus for a while, getting this film out and making it happen. But where do you think all this is leading? Where do you hope your story goes, and where do you hope it's leading to? Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. As all of you know, when it comes to getting ready for an adventure or actually doing the adventure, it usually involves a credit card of some sort. Credit card is just easier than cash to deal with a lot of the times. It's lighter. That's very important on a lot of adventures. But believe it or not, there's actually a credit card called the Aspiration Zero credit card that can help you tackle your negative impact on the climate just by using it. It's the first credit card that fights climate change by planting trees with every swipe. And the way it works is simple. With an Aspiration Zero credit card, you plant 2 trees with every purchase you make. And 2 trees soak up about the same amount of carbon dioxide in the air as the average American puts out every day. Not only do you help the planet when you swipe the card, you also get another green reward too. Cash money, baby. Unlimited 1% cash back on all your monthly purchases when you hit carbon zero for the month. So as you start buying things for that next adventure, or you're on the adventure and you use your card, you can know that you're offsetting a lot of what you're doing. So make your dollars make a difference. Apply for the Aspiration Zero credit card today and earn a $300 welcome bonus after spending $3,000 in the first 90 days. Apply right now at aspiration.com/ASP to go carbon neutral effortlessly and earn a $300 bonus. Go to aspiration.com/ASP. Aspiration Zero MasterCard is issued by a beneficial state bank pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Good credit required. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, welcome to your neighborhood pharmacy.
Hi, I've got a prescription for diabetes test strips. How much is the copay?
Well, it depends on your type of commercial insurance and factoring in your yearly spend, subtracting the deductibles, also depending on your monthly allowance.
Why can't there be a better option?
Or you could try Contour Next test strips. A 35 count's only $19.99 over the counter and proven to be highly accurate. Go to contournext.com/radio to see if over-the-counter strips are a more affordable option for you.
I think I'll try Contour Next.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
Oh, woof, that is a big question.
Sorry, these are heavy.
No, this is great. I love that. Every 6 months or so, right on time, I do this little exercise with myself and the exercise kind of look different, but it's really like a visioning, like personal visioning, road mapping, that talks about like values and goals and so on. And so what I had written was this sort of like 3-column framework of things I want, things I need, and I forget the 3rd column. Oh, and like what it looks like. And it was through the framework of exactly what you're asking about, which is what is your role in the outdoor industry, right? Because I do have I'm not just an athlete. I'm definitely not going to the Olympics. There's not a sport for me. But yeah, I'm at a place, I think, in my career where it's like acknowledging like what are the limitations, but also what are the possibilities. And I think a lot of those possibilities are still yet unknown. And so in my exercise where I looked at things I want, and what I need, and what it looks like. There were a couple of themes that emerged, and I think one of them is really around client community, right? So back to that like relationship component. Another part of it was around intersectional identity, both for myself as well as in, I think, the stories, experiences I share. And so when I say that, I mean like integrating all of the different things, like what you were saying about you and Paul backpacking. Like, how do we understand how we move through the world, and what does it mean? So telling intersectional stories that bring in different components and themes that help a story become more relevant or impactful to people from different backgrounds. Like, as you said, you and Paul may have shared where you've grown up, schools you've been through, but your life experiences have still been different. And yet can I tell a story about you? I bet we have something in there. One of the things I've learned as an athlete, as a freelancing creative, as a person that has started to experience some modicum of success, but has also existed certainly in lots of scarcity, financial and otherwise, throughout the last decade. I want to be open to many possibilities and still know that there is like a guiding light, and that guiding light is balance. That guiding light is family and values, and I think sharing beautiful experiences. So what that looks like could look very different for when I spend time with my mom, who's in a wheelchair, as it might look with Johnny and I if we go ski something big, right? So I'm not defining what I want to achieve or where I go by the people I meet or the lines that I ride or the rocks that I climb. It's, I think, bigger than that. And I mean, full disclosure, I come from a strategy background. So I'm like, those are just the tactics, right? Like the things that I achieve are the tools and the tactics, but like, what's the vision and what's the purpose? And I think the vision and the purpose is really just about, for myself, like finding what is that gray space where I can continually learn and like push myself and still have some semblance of balance at the same time as sharing that with others.
So tell me this, what are you most curious about right now outside of your career, all-encompassing career, whether that be advocacy, film, sport? What are you most curious about?
I think as I prepare for winter, I know we just started fall, but I'm a winter animal. Yeah. I'm really curious / excited about, I think, just deepening my experience in the Alpine on ice specifically. And getting into spaces that not just let me be a creative human, but also be really joyful, right? So part of the pandemic, I don't want to say I lost all my joy, but like, I'm really curious about like, what does it look like to live in a space of just joy and share that with people? Because I'm tired of just, I don't want to say I'm tired. I don't want to be a person that's like, or just living to work. Right. I also want to enjoy the humanity that I have right now. And so, yeah, I'm curious about that as well as sci-fi. I've gotten into reading sci-fi books, but that's another conversation for another time.
One of my questions was, is there a hobby you have that folks don't know about? Maybe it's sci-fi, but maybe it's something else.
Well, I love cooking. So specifically Mexican food. I don't know how to make Filipino food yet, but I will. I'm going to work on that after I go to the Philippines at some point in the future. But yeah, I love cooking. I think people probably know about that, probably because there are photos of it in the world. Maybe people don't know about reading. I love reading. I'm also secretly passionate about used gear. So I just got a Kindle Paperwhite for like $62 refurbished online. And I've been reading Octavia Butler books, who is an amazing Black feminist sci-fi writer who explores our humanity with like fantastical themes of the future.
Wow. Yeah. So cooking and sci-fi and there's a lot, a lot of hobbies. There we go.
A lot of hobbies.
Let's another really small question. biggest goal not yet achieved?
I'm not ready for that kind of accountability, Mason. I'm just joking. No, I'm just joking. What's my biggest goal not yet achieved? I have to, and this will be working. I don't want to say it's biggest, but one of my big goals. So every winter, well, actually, that's not true. Every like twice a year, I sit down and I write out my goals for like summer, fall, and then winter, spring. And so one of my big goals this year is to get comfortable on ice. So leading, I'm okay at following ice, like climbing in the alpine, like that kind of stuff. Just getting cozier with ice tools and that sketchy nonsense.
Sounds cool. Cold.
I think it'll be pretty cold, actually.
All right. So last two questions. Favorite athletic beer, if you have a favorite?
Oh. Well, I love First Ride because I love a stout, but I love Cerveza Atlética because there's nothing more delicious than a michelada.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I get that one shipped to my house every month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I think I need to make an order, actually. Okay. Yeah. So I have two. Can I have two favorite beers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, on every can of Athletic, it says brew without compromise, but we feel when you pursue something without compromise, like starting a business or a career or anything, you kind of have to just live that way. You can't choose to be excellent in a certain way and just not in others. It kind of takes that lifestyle. What does it mean to you to live without compromise?
What a question. To live without compromise. I think, for me at least, is grounding into the values of who I am. And if I don't know what those values are, being willing to explore them and learn about them and acknowledge that they're constantly shifting and evolving. And in the process of learning and growing and figuring out what is my compass, I'll figure out where I'm going. Because I think, to me at least, living without compromise is acknowledging that we might not know exactly where we're going, but something is guiding us. And all you can do is just admit that that's a possibility.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Hey, it's me, your Uncle Cooper. Sorry to interrupt your music. I do love music, especially when it's set at a reasonable volume. Music is really only as good as your speakers. The same is true for minivans. A minivan is only as good as the tires it sits on. And the button on the screen there, it agrees with me. If you click on it, it'll bring you to all the Cooper minivan tires that'll make your minivan a really good minivan. Go with the Coopers! Cooper!
Straight Talk Wireless knows there are plenty of reasons you might need a new phone. But switching to a better wireless provider doesn't have to be one of them. Keep your own phone and save when you switch to any Straight Talk Wireless plan, like our $45 Silver Unlimited plan with unlimited high-speed data and 5 gigs of hotspot, plus nationwide 5G on America's best networks. Keep your own phone. Switch to a better wireless plan. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart and Walmart.com. Requires a compatible unlocked phone and QIOP kit. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See latest terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.